In this movie, I'll show you how to automatically trace an image inside Illustrator, and we'll also see the significant impact of resolution on the quality of the final traced artwork. And by the way, what I'm about to show you works just the same whether you embedded the image using the open command or you're linking to the image via the place command. So that part doesn't matter. I'll go ahead and click on the image with the black arrow tool in order to select it. And for the sake of demonstration here, I'm going to go up to the edit menu and choose the copy command because I want to have a copy of the image to come back to in just a moment. I'll go up to the control panel and notice this button right there, Image Trace. All you have to do is click on it. It really is that simple where tracing line art is concerned. In my case, however, I end up getting this alert message. It says, tracing may proceed slowly with this large image file. Would you like to continue? Now, why is it calling it a large image file? It doesn't look that big on screen, and we're seeing the document at 116%. At least on my screen, it's probably at a higher zoom ratio on your screen. So it really isn't all that large. Well, here's the deal. Notice the resolution value up here in the control panel. We're seeing that this is a grayscale image, by the way. It doesn't contain any color. And the PPI, pixels per inch, is 600. That's a 600 pixel per inch image. That is a very high resolution file. We need those pixels. Now, you don't necessarily need 600 pixels per inch, but you do want 300 pixels per inch or better to get a good trace, especially when you're working with line art. And I'll show you the difference in just a moment. Then it offers this helpful advice, which, by the way, is very bad advice, and I'll demonstrate that. But it says to reduce the image size, rasterize to a lower resolution using essentially the rasterize command under the object menu. Well, this is a little bit misleading. Rasterize means convert to pixels. This image is already made of pixels, so by definition, it is a raster file, so we don't need to rasterize it. What you can do using the rasterize command under the object menu is reduce the resolution, so essentially re-rasterize the file. What you might want to do is say don't show again, because you never want to do this. However, I'm just going to click OK in order to trace the file. Now you can see we get a lot of progress bars, so it does take a little bit of time to trace that image, but goodness, we get good results. We've got a little bit of noise, and I'll show you how to address that shortly, but the quality is just great. Now compare that to what would happen if we followed Illustrator's advice, and I really want you to see the difference here, so that you have a sense of what kind of difference resolution makes when you're tracing an imported image. So I'm going to go up to the edit menu and choose paste in front in order to paste that image in front of itself. So here's the original image once again, and we can see the trace version of the image in the background. I'll go ahead and press Control-Z or Command-Z on a Mac to undo that move. Then, following Illustrator's advice once again, I'll go up to the object menu and I'll choose the rasterize command. By default, the color model is CMYK. We don't need that. This is a grayscale image, so we don't need to add a bunch of color to the file. That will just make the final document size much more massive, and that'll actually slow down the tracing process as well. So I'm going to select grayscale. And then resolution, high would be 300 ppi. Well, let's go ahead and make things as effortless as possible for Illustrator by reducing the resolution to screen, which is 72 ppi. And there was a day where Adobe used to officially recommend that this is the way you work. Now, we don't need to worry about the other options, so I'll just go ahead and click OK in order to reduce the number of pixels, or what's known as downsample that image. And you can see that it's looking a lot more choppy if I zoom in here. I'll go up to this image trace button, and I'll just go ahead and click on it. This time we don't get the warning, we don't get any progress bars, we get a trace lickety-split. Problem is, it doesn't look nearly as good as the one we saw a moment ago. So just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so that we can see the half a head of the insect and the wings and so forth. I'll go ahead and twirl open this tiny little layer here inside the Layers panel. And so I've got an image tracing on top. I'll go ahead and rename that guy 72 ppi. And then an image tracing on bottom, I'll go ahead and rename this one 600 ppi. And now I'll turn off 72 ppi so you can see the difference. This one, the 600 ppi tracing, has so much detail associated with it. Yes, it has some noise, but it doesn't look like a tracing at all. It has all this wonderful natural detail that's essentially maintaining sort of the organic nature of my line drawing. So it looks like an actual line drawing. The advantage is I'm going to be able to scale it and do all kinds of stuff to it, as we'll see in future movies. Whereas if I go ahead and turn on the 72 PPI version, this looks like some old school tracing from the late 80s, early 1990s. And this stuff is just giveaway. When people see this anymore, I think, they automatically recognize it as being badly traced vector art. And it also, by the way, doesn't reflect well on you because it shows that you machine traced your artwork, which isn't really very accurate because you created, presumably, this original illustration, so you worked really hard on this line drawing. You just brought it into Illustrator to do a good job of the vector trace. So what it comes down to is Illustrator's vector tracing function is awesome. This new image trace function in Illustrator CS6, fantastic feature. However, it will always give you better results when you work with high-resolution images, meaning 300 pixels per inch or better.